two troublemaker kids are dragging a fake body up to the bridge. They don't care about the cars zooming by below and toss the fake body over the edge. The bus in front freaks out, thinking it hit someone real, slams on the brakes and flips over in the middle of the road. Cars behind can't dodge in time, leading to a massive pileup. Meanwhile, the boy on the bridge is grinning like a devil, not a shred of guilt in sight. So, these troublemakers are Henry and Mark. Just 2 months ago, Mark's mom passed away from cancer. His dad had to leave town for work, so Mark ended up staying with his uncle. His uncle has a son and a daughter, and Mark hits it off with his cousin Henry right away. But soon enough, Mark starts noticing some seriously weird stuff. Henry is pretty strange. He's always dragging Mark into wild stunts, like hurling rocks at factory windows. He also loves taking Mark to the cemetery for some twisted fun. One time, by an old well, Henry pulled out a metal box with cigarettes and a lighter. He casually lights one up and hands it to Mark. Mark doesn't want to smoke, knowing it's bad for him, but Henry gets all moody and insists. Mark takes a puff and starts coughing his lungs out. Henry snatches the cigarette away and chucks it into the well, then laughs and says he was just messing with him. His mood swings faster than you can turn a page. Even though Henry's a bit of a weirdo, Mark doesn't think much of it, because he really likes the family, especially his aunt who's been super kind to him. But Mark starts noticing something off. His aunt likes to be alone a lot. The aunt often goes to the edge of the cliff. Mark only later learns that she had a young son, who drowned in a bathtub a year ago. Whenever she's overwhelmed with grief, she hides away in his old room, staring at his toys and crying quietly. To lift her spirits, Mark makes an effort to spend as much time with her as he can. One night, missing his own mother, Mark wakes up from a dream. He sees his aunt in a white dress and mistakes her for his mom. Out of love for Mark, the aunt holds him close, treating him like her own child. Henry, watching from upstairs, sees this and becomes consumed with jealousy, thinking that Mark is taking away the love that should be his. And Henry starts plotting to get rid of Mark. Then one day, something goes horribly wrong. Henry is the most evil kid you've ever met. One day, Henry takes Mark climbing a tree that's over 30 feet tall. Just as they're nearing the top, a branch snaps beneath Mark, and he almost falls. Henry managed to grab him, but instead of pulling him up right away, he leaves Mark hanging and says, "If I let go right now, it'd be pretty fun." Fortunately, Henry's little sister is watching from below, so Henry doesn't act on his twisted idea, and eventually pulls Mark up. Mark thinks Henry is just joking and has no clue about his real intentions. Then one day, Henry takes Mark to his secret hideout. It's a spooky spot full of all kinds of bizarre items, and a homemade air gun. Henry carries the air gun and leads Mark into the woods. Some people are just born evil. Henry grabs the air gun, aims at a little dog and gets ready to shoot. Mark's cousin tries to stop him, saying the dog is innocent. But Henry doesn't listen at all. He pulls the trigger, and the dog drops dead instantly. Henry just stares blankly at the dog, showing no emotion as he stuffs it into a sack. With tomato juice dripping out, they haul the dead dog to the old well and push it in. Henry shows no regret and even starts humming by the well. He's clearly using this as a warning to Mark, not to take away his mother's love. Mark starts to see Henry's behavior growing increasingly bizarre. Henry even forces Mark to help him throw a fake body off the bridge, causing a huge traffic accident that injures and kills several people. When Mark calls him out, Henry just says he doesn't care as long as he's happy, because everyone dies eventually. Mark is stunned. Before dinner, Mark sees the news about the accident and considers telling their uncle, but Henry threatens him, saying if he tries to tell, he'll say Mark was behind it. Mark ends up staying silent. Burdened by guilt, Mark stops hanging out with Henry and spends time only with Henry's little sister, Sally. As Mark and Sally grow closer, Henry's jealousy flares up again. Henry is bullying his little sister, yanking on her ears and not letting go. Mark tries to stop him, but Henry threatens to hurt Sally if Mark dares to step in. The next day, as luck would have it, Mark's uncle and aunt have to go out of town, leaving just the three of them at home overnight. To keep Sally safe, Mark stays by her side, reads her bedtime stories, and even makes a bed on the floor next to her. But when he wakes up, he finds that Sally is missing. It turns out Henry took her out on his own to go ice skating. Mark's heart races as he makes his way to the ice rink. At the rink, Henry and Sally are skating around with the crowd, making several laps. Henry is the worst troublemaker you can imagine. He suddenly speeds up, and Sally's thinking he's showing her how to skate like a pro. She's having a blast. But out of nowhere, Henry lets go and throws her past the safety barrier. Sally crashes hard onto the ice, and as she tries to get up, the ice starts cracking. She plunges into a hole in the ice. Henry immediately gets down and crawls towards her slowly. He reaches out, but he's only pretending to help. He has no intention of actually pulling her out. Just then, Mark arrives and tries to reach Sally, but the crowd holds him back. Henry watches coldly as Sally struggles in the freezing water for a full minute before she slowly sinks. Fortunately, staff arrive just in time, break the ice with a sledgehammer, and pull her out. Sally's rushed to the hospital, but Henry's not done yet. He plots to smother Sally with a pillow. Luckily, their mother wakes up, turns on the light, and Henry quickly pretends nothing happened. Henry nearly killed his sister. Mark sees everything Henry does, and it's clear that Henry's jealousy is driving him to get rid of his sister. Mark decides to come clean and tell Aunt the truth. But instead of listening, she slaps Mark hard. Aunt doesn't believe Mark. She's already lost her young son, and just can't accept that her only other son might be a monster who'd hurt his own sister. Mark is scared Henry will hurt Sally again. Every night, he wakes up in a panic and rushes to make sure she's safe. Henry just gets worse, threatening Mark that if he ever tells anyone again, he'll cook up something poisonous for the whole family. Mark tears open the fridge, yanks out all the food, and dumps it frantically down the drain, fearing that his cousin Henry might have poisoned it to wipe out the whole family. Meanwhile, Henry seizes the chance to tell his dad that Mark is going crazy. Uncle thinks Mark's just having problems because he lost his mom. Mark has no choice but to reach out for help. He calls his dad, telling him everything, how Henry tortures animals, causes accidents, and even threatens to kill the little sister. But his dad brushes him off and tells him to see a therapist. Mark hopes the therapist will believe him, but Henry is a step ahead. He's already manipulated the therapist into believing that Mark is the real troublemaker. Now, no one believes Mark. He's left with no choice but to keep a close eye on Henry to protect the family. But the sharp-eyed aunt notices something weird about the two kids. She sneaks into Henry's secret hideout, and when she steps into the little cabin, she's shocked by what she sees. Always know what your kids are playing with. Mark's aunt sneaks into Henry's secret hideout and finds a creepy doll hanging from the rafters. Then she spots a small yellow duck, her late young son's toy. How did it end up here? As she tries to make sense of this, Henry bursts in, acting like a madman. He grabs the yellow duck from her, claiming it was his toy that his mother gave to his little brother. Henry storms out of the cabin, dashes to the old well, and throws the duck down to the bottom. His eyes are filled with hatred and coldness. In that moment, he starts to imagine killing his own mother. Henry even confides in Mark that he will get rid of her. Mark has come to see Aunt as his true mother. Hearing this, he grabs a pair of scissors and holds them to Henry's neck. This plays right into Henry's plan. Uncle sees what's happening and, thinking Mark has serious psychological issues, then puts him in lockdown. Henry plans to kill his own mother. He pretends to be weak and says he wants to have a heart-to-heart with her. Then he takes her hand and leads her towards the forest. Mark, standing by the window, sees everything and realizes Aunt is in danger. He grabs a chair, smashes the glass, and runs after them. In the woods, Henry reveals to his mother that he's the one who killed his little brother and caused his sister to fall into the ice hole. Overwhelmed with grief, she can hardly comprehend that her own son is a monster. Despite this, she doesn't plan to give up on Henry and still wants to save him. But Henry exploits her last bit of motherly love. He pretends he wants to end his life and runs towards a cliff. His mother rushes after him, but when she reaches the edge, Henry is nowhere to be seen. It turns out Henry is hiding in the nearby bushes and sneaks up behind his mother. Henry shoves his mother off the cliff, leaving her dangling from a dead tree branch. If he can't have her love for himself, he'll destroy it. Henry picks up a rock, ready to throw it at her. Just then, Mark arrives in time and tackles Henry. They start wrestling at the edge of the cliff, while the mother struggles to climb up. As the two boys start to slip, she grabs them both, hanging them in midair. Henry begs his mother not to let go, telling her he still loves her, but she's too exhausted to hold on to both. If she doesn't choose, both boys will die. Seeing Mark's grip slipping, she makes the tough decision to let Henry go. As her own son falls, she pulls Mark up to safety. They cling to each other, sobbing on the cliff's edge. And that's the wrap. The film is called The Good Son. If you enjoyed it, check out the original. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you next time.